The Porsche 911 GTS is often considered to be the sweet spot of the range. It are however not only the driving dynamics where the car excels. Also values are extremely strong, and in this video I will show you why I think that it is one of the best value for money 911s you can buy right now. What's up YouTube, and welcome to a new video. Now we all know the story behind the GTS. It's supposed to bridge the gap between the Carrera S and the GT3. For many people this is then also the perfect car. Last year's video about the GTS market was then also quite popular, and I received many requests to update that video. So without further ado, let's have a look at today's GTS market, the price changes and why the car offers such a good value for money. Over here we have the US Carrera GTS market. On the horizontal axis we have the model year, and on the vertical axis the price. Each car is displayed by a bubble, and the colors identify the different generations. Finally then, I also need to point out that the black axis represent the median price points for each model year, and that I excluded the special editions like the Rennsport Reunion and the Club Coupes. Now the GTS market is relatively small. There are only 94 cars for sale. Also, you can see that the price is heavily influenced by the generations. The 997.2 has a median price point of $96,000, the 991.1 of $129,000, and the 991.2 of $142,000. So there's a gap of $33,000 between the 997.2 and 991.1 and $13,000 between the .1 and .2 991. The generation does then also predict around 60% of the price variation. 30% can be explained by the mileage and the remaining 10% by the color, transmission type and roof type. Alright, but why does the GTS offer them such a good value for money? Let me show you. You see, the argumentation is pretty close to the one in last year's video. The underlying market moved a lot, but many segments moved in parallel, so that the conclusions remain the same. Over here we have again the model year to price relationship, but I included now also the Carrera, Carrera S, GTS and in blue the GT3. And note that it says no information here, but this is actually the GT3. Also, you can see that I included the model year trends, and to keep things a bit tidy, I only included the 991 generation. Now then, this graph reveals a few interesting things. First of all, it reveals that the premium which you pay for a Carrera compared to a Carrera S decreases when the car ages. For a car from model year 2019, you need to pay $32,000 extra to get that S behind the Carrera logo. However, for the older model years, this is a lot less. The premium over there sits between $11,000 and $14,000. Now as a result of this, you can see that the green line is moving towards the red line and that the price gap is reduced. Now when we look at the GTS market, we can see the effect in the opposite direction, and that because of that, the relative young ones offer extremely good value for money. You can namely see that over time, the premium for the GTS is increasing. For a 2019 car, the premium is around $10,000, while this is $15,000 for a 2015 car. And this means of course that the GTS is depreciated a lot less than the Carrera S's. So by paying a little bit more for a recent example, you get a car with more performance which also depreciates less. And that sounds like a good deal to me. Moreover, if you were to extrapolate this line, it would be reasonable to assume that this would also hold going forward. But there's one more thing. The GTS is supposed to sit between the Carrera S and the GT3, so it's only fair to only include the GT3 in this argumentation. But as you can see, it only further supports the case that the GTS offers good value for money. In today's market, believe it or not, the premium for a 991.2 GT3 sits at $50,000 to $70,000. And that means that you need to pay almost 1.5 GTS to get yourself into a GT3. Now a situation where this premium fades away is not unthinkable. The premium for the 991.1 GT3 is for example a lot lower. You can see that it sits around $30,000, and even that the finest GTS's are priced very close to the cheapest GT3s. Now, in theory, all of these premiums could be the result of chance. However, we can see that the confidence intervals are relatively narrow, showing that the uncertainty in the median prices is relatively low. But just to be sure, let's also have a look at the market back in Q4 2020. We have again the Carrera, the S version, the GTS and the GT3. Now you can see that there are some small differences, but that the larger trends remain the same. The premium between the Carrera and the Carrera S fades away, and the premium between the S and the GTS increases. In Q4 2020, the premium for a 2019 car was $6,000, and for a 2015 car this was $16,000. Now compared to the GT3, we can still see that the initial premium decreases. Yet, the gap for the younger cars was much smaller back then than that it is now, while the gap for the older cars is actually larger now. And this has to do with the crazy market situation we are currently in. But before we have a look at that, if you like this video, please support this channel by clicking down below on that like button. Thank you. But now then, the current market situation. We just saw that the 911 991 GTSs offer good value for money and that the price premiums remained more or less constant. So from that it would also follow that the Carrera prices changed in a similar way. But just to be sure, let's have a quick look at the value development over time. Over here we have in orange the price development for the GT3, in blue for the GTS, in green for the Carrera S and in red for the Carrera. And look at that price increase in the GT3 market. You can see immediately that it is much larger than in the other ones. Prices over there went up with 46%. But if you want to know more about that, then I recommend that you click on the pop-up banner right over here. That will bring you to my detailed market analysis of the GT3 market. Now if we look then at the Carreras, and let's remove the GT3 from the graph, then we can see that between August 2020 and now, GTS prices went up with 18% or $21,000. They increased from $116,000 to $137,000. The Carrera and Carrera S increased with respectively 12 and 13%. However, you can see that this increase is based on a shorter time interval. If we correct for that, then the Carrera and the Carrera S's would have gone up with 16%. A number which is basically the same as the one we see in the GTS market. Now this of course shows that all of the Carreras basically followed the same price development. Nevertheless, even though that the prices changed over time, the premiums for the GTS remained the same. The price changes just meant a parallel shift of the model year curves. Hence, it clearly shows that the cars are from the same Carrera family. We saw earlier that the GT3 belongs to a different product group and had a different price development. And with that we are almost done with the GTS market. But there's one more thing we need to talk about. You see, the price developments which I just showed you are based on the median prices for the full market. But could it be so that there's a certain market segment which saw a larger price increase than the others? Let me give you the answer without showing even more graphs. Not really. The price increase is slightly larger for the manuals, but the difference is not shocking. For the cabriolets and the coupes it is more or less the same. And also for the four-wheel and two-wheel driven cars it's more or less the same. There is however a small difference between the generations. Let's have a look. We are looking now at the price development for the Carrera GTS market split by generation. In green we have the 997.2, in orange the 991.1 and in blue the 991.2. Now based on this graph, the price increase would be 30% for the 997, 32% for the 991.1 and only 16% for the 991.2 market. However, these price developments over time are difficult to compare as the underlying mileage composition changed a lot per generation. And it didn't always change in the same direction. Mileages went up in the 991.2 market and down in the other two. So it makes a lot of sense to look at the weighted price development over time. Now unfortunately I don't have the graph yet ready for this, but I do have the numbers. And those show a 25% increase for the 997.2, a 30% increase for the 991.1 and a 20% increase for the 991.2. Alright, but now we are getting somewhere, right? We can see now that the 991.1 increased significantly more than the others. Moreover, I repeated this analysis for the Carrera and Carrera S market, and also there the 991s increased more than the 991.2s, but that's perhaps something for a different video. Now if we go then back to the GTS market, I guess that it's not a surprise to most of you that it is the 991.1 which increased the most. It is of course the last naturally aspirated GTS, and that has to mean something, right? However, there might be another factor in play here. A viewer of the channel notified me that there was a stop sale for the 991.1s which have the Sport Chrono pack. And this also might have affected the values as it limited supply to some extent. Now I already showed you quite some graphs and numbers, so let's do a quick summary. We saw that the GTSs offer good value for money as they hold their value slightly better than the Carrera S's. Moreover, for the younger cars, the current price gap to a GT3 is so large that you can't say anymore that the GTSs sit between a Carrera S and a GT3. Now the reason for this premium increase is the strong price increase in the GT3 market. Prices over there are a bit out of control. However, it did reveal to us that the Carrera and the GT market are really two different market segments. we saw that the normal Carrera, the Carrera S and the GTS also similar price changes. Yet, as this video is about the GTS market, we looked a bit deeper into the price change and found that especially the 991.1 saw a large price increase. Now it is of course a bit personal, but if you are in the market for either a 991.2 Carrera S or a 991.2 GTS, the GTS seems to me the more sensible choice. However, what if you are the type of buyer who was originally doubting between the GTS and the GT3? Now if I was in that situation, I would have a good look at the Carrera T. If you are into the GT3 but are not yet able to or willing to stretch so far financially, the T might be the answer for you. For the driving enthusiasts, this car might even be better value for money than a GTS. If we have a quick look at the 991.2 market, we can see that the T sits very close to the Carrera in terms of pricing, and that it sits far below the GTS and the GT3. You can almost get 2 Carrera Ts for the price of one GT3. But more about the T in a different video. We namely arrived at the end of this video. Now if you like this data-driven way of analyzing cars, but would have liked to see the analysis for a different car, let me know down in the comment section for which car you would like to see an analysis. Don't forget to subscribe and click on the notification bell so you will be actually notified when your requested analysis goes live. As always, thank you for watching and I hope to see you next week for a new video.